What is PMP? Many people know that it stands for Project Management Professional. But what does it mean to have a PMP certification? We'll tell you. It's an industry-wide recognized qualification. It works within any industry and in any location. It's a career promoter. Surveys show that certified project managers earn almost 20% more than non-certified ones. And the trend shows this will continue to grow. It's a higher job security, especially relevant during the pandemic when lots of people are getting laid off. It's networking. And most importantly, it's a tool to improve and validate all the essential competencies for successful project management. Today, project managers with PMP certifications handle 3/4 of all high-performing projects. Companies having more than a third PMP certified specialists have a higher project success than those companies that don't. So whether you are an individual contributor wanting to increase your value in the job market and become more hireable, or if you are a company wanting to run complex projects with a higher success rate, PMP is what you need and we will help you get there. Contact us. We have your back. Imagine you're in the middle of negotiating with a tough supplier. They give you their price, which is way more than what you can afford. At this exact moment in time, are you able to quickly decide what you can and cannot give up? Normally, it comes down to time, price, and quality. It all depends on your ability to think on your feet and make the right choice under pressure. And this is negotiation. So what will you get out of the course? Well, you'll know how to plan and prepare, focusing on your counterparty's pressure, not only yours. You'll be able to analyze your situation during negotiations on the spot. Identify your variables, your best alternative, your worst alternative, and your zone of possible agreement and stick to it. Confidently barter without losing face or damaging the relationship. Welcome objections. Objections are actually a good thing because they help you find out more about what the other party wants. Understand how to identify manipulative tactics and neutralize them, and always be willing to walk away. You will be more aware of what kind of negotiator you are and, most important, the areas you need to focus on. So what's included? 4 intense hours per day of role plays, interactive discussions, self-awareness activities, and more. PowerPoint slides, an e-workbook, and a certificate of completion. What are you waiting for? Come on board. Your best negotiation is yet to come. With us.
What's it like to be a project manager? You get to meet and interact with people from diverse backgrounds. You will plan, resource, and manage the project. You get to create something from absolutely nothing, and you have the opportunity to empower your team. But what's it like to be a project manager with the PMP? For one, you will earn a lot more money. Yes, survey shows that certified project managers earn almost 20% more than non-certified ones, and you'll get industry recognition. PMP certification is a universally recognized symbol of excellence in the field, and your CV will be shortlisted. Interviewers tend to prioritize profiles with the PMP certifications over those which do not have it. Yes! And lastly, you will get the networking opportunities you want. There are more than 700,000 active PMP certification holders across the world, and when you get one, you become part of that club. Want to get your PMP certificate? Join us now.
you've got a cup of tea ready next to you, we are starting today's session on performance management, how to handle difficult employees during performance reviews. So just before we make a start, the answer to number 1 is a beetle. The answer to number 2 is a seesaw in the playground. Answer to number 3 is silence. Number 4 is a piano. Number 5 is your reflection. And number 6, yes, you got it. Are you asleep yet? So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending this We Select Live Performance Management course. How to handle difficult employees during performance review meetings. Now, just to give you a little bit of background, we actually conducted a poll and the majority of you said, look, this is the topic that I really want to know about, how to handle difficult employees during performance review meetings. I'm just going to go through very quickly the guidelines for those attending for the first time on Zoom. Could you please put your mobile on silent, move it away from your computer or laptop because you do get feedback. If you feel comfortable, it's always nice to put a name to a face. You can put your video on. For those of you who are not aware of background noise, I will be muting you. Alternatively, if you do want to contribute during today's session and speak out, you can unmute you by clicking on the icon. Reactions. So just to get us started, could I just get a hands up, a thumbs up or a high five for those who are attending? If you go to the icon, thank you, Claire, very much. Makey, thank you. Raja, thank you. Riza, thank you very much. Zafar, thank you. Kat, Madeline, brilliant. You guys are on the ball. Thank you very much. You will need this icon because I will be asking you a question as we proceed through today's session. If you want to change the viewing, you can go to the top right-hand corner of your screen and you can change the gallery review settings. So I've got quite a packed day today, and I'm going to go through what you will be learning in this session as we go. Research conducted by Adobe on performance reviews. So Adobe conducted some research on how perceptions of employees, what their perceptions are of performance review meetings. Not only that, but what are their reactions after they've attended a performance review meeting? I want to do a reality check on your actions. Are we the cause of employees being difficult during performance appraisal meetings? Reasons why employees can be difficult, and how to have that performance review discussion. And we'll actually be starting from the very basics of how do we start that opening statement? How do we get that performance review session onto a good start? How to respond when they disagree and when they lose their temper. We've got to be prepared for any eventuality. I'll be sharing you some do's and don'ts, my top 7 tips, and we will be finishing with a video on putting yourself in someone else's shoes. Okay, so first of all, as I said, Adobe conducted a poll of over 1,500 employees, and they came up with these results. But let's just put this into context though. You know, performance reviews are a part of being in the workplace, and unfortunately, sometimes good employees receive bad reviews. Nobody likes to be told that they're not performing or they're not doing a good job. But really, it's how our employees respond that can determine whether they sink or swim. So here are some comments and reviews about the perceptions of performance reviews by employees. 64% of employees have said, hey, listen, performance reviews are outdated. They're not the best way to manage performance. 61% have said managers actually play favorites in performance review process. 59% have said that, look, my performance review has had absolutely no impact on how I do my job, which means is the feedback that is being provided during the performance review about what they've done or moving forward as to how we can improve the way that they do their job. 58% have said performance reviews are a needless HR requirement. The same 58% have also said that they find performance reviews very stressful. And this is further compounded by the fact that managers don't plan, don't prepare, and have saved up all of the feedback to give it in one shot at the end of the year. And this is actually called gunny sacking. 57% have said performance reviews put employees in competition with each other. So it creates that divide and conquer atmosphere and culture in the department where employees actually start to feel that they're competing with their colleagues. And 52% have said that, look, having my performance ranked against my peers is actually really upsetting. So this can give you an indication of perceptions of performance reviews. But how do employees react? Well, according to Adobe, here are some of the reactions as a result of the performance reviews. 52% have felt surprised about the feedback we've received. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the performance review should never be a surprise. It should never be a shock. If you have been conducting regular monthly reviews and check-ins with your teams, it shouldn't be a surprise. 37% started looking at job openings at other companies. 37% also said they felt resentful towards their manager. And you've got to admit, if you as a manager are just throwing out random comments and random ratings to employees, they are going to feel resentful because it becomes personal and not based on the performance. It's more based on the personality, and it could bring in unconscious bias, which we will look at a little bit later on. 37% have said they actually forgot what was said in the feedback session. So you've got to ask yourself, well, are we documenting what was said? Are we making it easy for our employees to access our feedback so we can then review it, maybe after 6 weeks, 2 months' time? 32% said they became angry with their manager. 22% actually cried, which is really sad. And wait for it, 20% quit their job. So you have to really take a step back, organizations, and start asking yourself, is our performance review really contributing to the performance of our employees? And is it giving us the results we want? Regardless of whether the conversation is a good conversation or not a good conversation, we really need to start thinking, how are we conducting these appraisals? And are we making our employees upset, resentful towards us because of how we're giving feedback and the overall structure of performance appraisals? So now I want to do a check-in with you, and this is where I'd like you to perhaps contribute and engage in today's session. I'm going to ask you 10 questions, and I'd like you to either use the chat box or raise your thumbs, give me a reaction in response to these questions. So when was the last time you sat down with your team to find out how they are coping? Can anyone remember the last time? When was the last time you sat down with your team and just basically asked them, how are you? How are you feeling today? Can I get a chat? Tell me in the chat box, when was the last time you sat down with your team? Anybody? An hour ago. Claire, I love this. Fantastic. Last week, Dr. Yuvaraj, brilliant. Thank you very much. Anybody else want to tell me when they sat down with their team? When was the last time? Last Thursday, Abigail, fantastic, brilliant. Last week, Alki, brilliant. Madeline, a few days ago. So really, we need to be thinking about, are we giving our employees enough face time? When was the last time you reviewed each other's employees' KPIs, goals, and objectives? Not only that, explained, and explained more about their targets and progress to date. Now, the reason I'm saying explained, and explained, this really needs to be reinforced. You set your targets in January. Are we really expecting our employees to remember them in October? So we need to carry out these regular check-ins, and this should be done, as I see, on a monthly, sometimes weekly event. Now, when did we provide feedback, whether remote or in person, over the last 2 to 3 months? Have you done this? If you've done this, can you high five me or just put something in the chat box? Have you provided feedback to your team in the past 2 to 3 months? Yes or no, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you. Okay, no problem. Dr. Raj, thank you very much. Yes. Anybody else? Claire, thank you. Sherka, thank you very much. Okay, Abigail, no. Daniela, thank you. So, staying with that feedback, if you did you then provide action points to follow through? So it's not just enough about giving feedback, but let's pay that feedback forward. Let's give them action points to then follow through. Discuss their performance with hard evidence to support your comments. Now, just a little bit of information about hard evidence and soft evidence. Hard evidence is tangible. It's something you can touch, a report. Soft evidence is a comment that was said, is a behavior. And my recommendation to anyone that's managing a team, if you see behavior, if you notice a specific behavior that's not really supportive or aligned with the culture that you expect from the department, document it, either in an email or your own file notes, because we forget what employees have done. If half of us can't remember what we had for lunch last week, how do we really expect to remember what an employee did or said 3 months ago? Have you reviewed the overall performance management process for your organization? Ladies and gentlemen, time and time again, when I meet managers, they themselves don't actually understand the performance process of their organization. Now, I'd like you to give me a comment here. How many of you have reviewed the rating definitions and really understand the criteria? So whatever your ratings are, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, excellent, overachieved, achieved, met expectations. How many of you understand your rating definitions, please? Give me a high five, a yes, or a no, please. Anybody? Syed, thank you very much. You understand it. No, Mustafa? Okay. Zafar, thank you. I saw your hand up. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are giving a rating and you don't understand the definition, it is going to turn into a difficult conversation. Elke, you've put yes, but it's subjective. Interesting. Sherka, you make sure your team understands it too. Fantastic. Thank you. So not only that, but you've got to ask yourself, when was the last time you reviewed your notes made during the regular check-ins with your team about their performance? In February, in April, in June, in August, in September, and assessed where they are on what we call the skill-will matrix. Now, these are really important check-ins that we should be asking ourselves if we are managing a team. But now I'd like to just turn our attention to hard evidence and the skill-will matrix. Now, remember, today is all about how do we manage those difficult conversations in performance review meetings. I'm going to give you a tool which will really help you to conceptualize why an employee is underperforming, because ultimately, if an employee is underperforming and we haven't given them solid feedback that is tangible, hard evidence, we're going to create a situation where the employee becomes very defensive. So I'm going to explain this tool to you. As you can see, you have competency, which indicates the level of skill or ability. Now, I'd like to give you a definition of a person being competent. If a person is competent, they are able to achieve a skill or a task to the required level, i.e. quality, and within the time frame. So remember this, competency is the ability to perform a task to the required standard, quality within the time frame. We have motivation, which is the will, which is an attitude. If somebody doesn't want to do something, unfortunately on this course, I don't have a magic wand and I can't give you the answer. Basically, they're not going to do it. We cannot make anybody do something they don't want to do. So we have 4 quadrants. We have has high skill, but is low in motivation. We have high skill and is high in motivation. We then have a high motivation, but a low skill. And then we have low motivation and low skill, and really, who hired him? So Anna is high skill and has a low motivation. We need to work out why she has this. We have Bader, who has high skill and is high in motivation. Carl, middle of the road. Isam, high motivation but low skill. And I like the Isams of the world because we can actually train them. And then Alex, who hired him? He's a complete, let's say, a person who's not going to be contributing much to the department. Okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who would like a tool, a PDF editable tool, please make sure you put your email address into the chat box and one of my team will contact you to share this tool with you. But there's a thing that I want to explain as to how you can use this tool and why it's useful in the performance review meetings. First of all, it's important because it helps you to conceptualize where the employee is. But not only that, I would give this tool to my employee to complete first of all. So remember, it is very much based on an employee's skill and their motivation. So I ask them to complete it first of all, and I also complete it. And then we come back at the end of the day to work out, okay, where are you and where do I think you are? And then we match the two together. This is an important conversation, but it should always be backed up with evidence. Ladies and gentlemen, anyone entering into the performance review process now, you should start looking at the types of evidence that you have collected, because this can support why you say that somebody on the skill is low, but yet they have a high motivation. So this is really critical at this stage. Now, I'd like to ask you another question. We're going to look at behavior now. And ultimately, it's the behavior that we're trying to manage when it comes to the performance review. I'm often asked the question, why is Mohammed being so difficult? Why is Anna being so difficult? Well, basically, when you ask yourself why these employees are being so difficult, don't be surprised because it's worked for them in the past. They've been able to behave this way and they've got what they wanted. So my question to you, ladies and gentlemen, is behavior intentional? Yes or no? Can you please put it in the chat box? Do you think behavior is intentional? Yes or no? I'm interested because this will lead us into the next question. Do you think people behave intentionally? Okay, Sheka, yes, mostly when they're aware of it. Yes. Thank you, Maria. Shekri, yes, most of the time. Maki, yes. Lamis, thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, yes, behavior is intentional. What it means is we behave in a certain way to get what we want. So if somebody starts becoming difficult, remember their behavior is intentional and they're not happy with the situation because they're not getting what they want. We choose the behavior. And what this means is in any situation, we are behaving in a specific way and choosing to behave in that way to get what we want. When you ask yourself, don't they know any better? Well, at that situation, no, they don't know any better. They are choosing that specific behavior. So what are the reasons that they are behaving in a specific way? Well, it could be they don't know what to expect and are in defense mode even before you open your mouth during the appraisal. Remember the reactions that I showed you from Adobe? and also their perceptions of performance reviews. It could be they've heard on the grapevine that reviews are horrible and will be used against you. Maybe you haven't sat down with them to provide feedback, whether remote or in person, over the last 3 to 6 months, and you haven't seen them. So suddenly you're meeting them in the performance review in December, but last time you met them was in August. They have no idea about the performance management system or how they are rated or assessed. So if you don't explain this to them and they don't understand, immediately they're going to be defensive. A common one, you had conflict with them in the past and they've got their guns ready. Their missiles are ready to aim and fire. So they're coming to the situation defensive already. They don't know you as either they've recently joined the team or you're a new manager. They know their performance has been below expectations. And here it goes back to their choosing this behavior. They hope that if they are difficult and defensive, you'll be nice to them. You'll be easy to them. And finally, they've heard about the bell curve and hope that if they fight and become defensive and difficult, they will be in the top percentile. So how do we have the discussion, ladies and gentlemen? How do we make sure that we can contribute to that discussion about their performance not being difficult? Well, first of all, timing. Do not delay or put off the inevitable. Procrastinating could help the employee use it against you. So this really supports the fact that don't put off these difficult situations where you have to give them feedback. And don't put off the performance appraisal review at all. Avoid small talk. In the actual discussion, don't start with small talk. Just get straight to the point and make sure that it is acknowledged. This is going to be a little bit of a difficult situation and a difficult conversation about performance issues. Have a plan for you and for the employee. For you so that you can jot down notes, and the employee so that they can digest. And I would normally give this to them maybe 2 or 3 days before their review. Provide evidence. We've discussed this. Do not label or blame. Look, you can't know an employee's intent for them behaving a certain way. You don't want to come across as attacking. It's happened. Let's focus on the future now. If you ask why they behave, it doesn't really show support. Rather than saying, why did you behave? You could actually say, look, your behavior wasn't acceptable in 1, 2, 3. And moving forward, we want to make sure we can support you. Accountability and excuses. Look, ladies and gentlemen, nobody's perfect. But be careful not to hold an employee accountable for doing a task when they didn't have the resources. If they did have everything they needed and they didn't perform the task, then you hold them accountable. Unconscious bias, something I mentioned earlier on. We all have unconscious bias, yet if we're not aware of that unconscious bias, it can come and bite us at the worst moment. So just be aware of making sure that you know if you have any biases, but not using them against an employee. Watch out for trigger words. Always avoid always and never say never. You're always late. You never submit this. You're always doing this. You never do this. Difficult discussions, please try to avoid these words. Something that I often advise managers to do is to listen with their eyes. What the employee is not saying is just as important as what they are saying. Watch their body language and set clear expectations moving forward. Okay, you've had the performance review. Now set expectations moving forward. In future, I want you to do 1, 2, and 3. So when you try to communicate the issue and the employee starts getting defensive and starts to really disagree with you, I like to use questioning as a useful approach. Here are some questions that you could use when an employee starts to become difficult and starts to disagree. So, Hassan, can you provide examples that will show me what is wrong with my assessment of your performance? Hassan, what do you think that I am misunderstanding about the performance that I regularly observe this quarter? So, Hassan, the feedback that I have received from your co-workers, team members, and other managers is actually consistent with my observations. Hassan, consequently, I know that you disagree with my assessment, but I haven't heard anything today that makes me want to alter it. And finally, Hassan, for now, my assessment will stand. I will be happy to discuss your performance further in a month at our weekly meeting after I have seen evidence of improvement in these particular areas. So these 5 questions, ladies and gentlemen, are very, very useful. And they are good questions to really put the statements and the behavior into context. Now, when they lose their temper in the performance review, it's important to try to stay calm. Remember, if you start to become angry like them, you become them. That's not the ideal situation. You want to be calm. Let them get it off their chest. If they want to rant and rave, let them. Let them say what they want to say. But remember to listen and make a mental note of the issues they are raising. They may become difficult because there's information you don't know or you weren't aware of. Take note of this. Work through the issues in a subtle manner, but don't lose focus of the main issue. And if things are getting really heated, my suggestion is to postpone and reconvene at a little bit later on. Now, I mentioned briefly about having an opening statement, and an opening statement really helps you to set the scene. A lot of people that I've coached and in some of my workshops or when I'm consulting, they come to me and they say, I don't know how to start the conversation. It's going to be a really difficult conversation and I need to know what I can say and how I can say it. So I've got an opening statement for you. This is a sample opening statement that can help you set off the scene in the right way. Good morning, Sharif. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me. As you know, it's time for your performance review. I would like to provide you with feedback about your performance and how well you feel you have performed over the past year, and then we can take it from there. Now, my plan is to go through each competency or goal with you and then discuss and agree on the rating. Before we start, though, I want to make sure that you understand the ratings and what these mean. Remember, make sure the employee understands the ratings. And if need be, go through the process with them. For us to really benefit, I would like this to be an open and honest session so we can share the feedback with each other. And if there are any situations that you feel that I may have missed out, please let me know. I will be referring to my notes from time to time. Remember, you've come with the notes and you've also prepared the employee with notes. At the end of the discussion, I will then enter my ratings in the system. I would then like to discuss your objectives for the next year and set out an action plan for the way forward. So what this means is, whatever the system, you agree on those ratings, but more importantly, what's going to be happening in the future. So here are some do's and don'ts that I want to share with you. Do's: make it clear at the beginning of the year how you will evaluate your employees with individual planning sessions. If it comes to the end of the year and the employees know how they've been measured, it's not going to be a difficult situation. It's not going to be a difficult conversation, and you will help to prevent any defensive behavior happening. Give your employees a copy of their appraisal before the meeting, so they have the initial emotional response in private. A lot of employees become difficult during the performance reviews because it's a shock, it's a surprise. Try to avoid that at all costs. Follow some of the tips that we've given you in the session, but also give them that copy so that they can digest it. And most organizations now ask the employee to rate themselves, and then that employee gets rated by their manager. And it's normally the manager who has access to the rating beforehand. But try to see if you can share this. Deliver positive messages to good performers by concentrating on their strengths. So it's not all negative. It should be an easy balance. Here are my don'ts. Don't offer general feedback. Be specific on behaviors you want your employees to either stop, start, or continue. If you say to an employee, great job, well, what was great about my job? I've been in the organization for 3 years and I've been in work for 4 hours. Exactly what particular aspect of my job was great? Fantastic report. It's 43 pages. What was fantastic about it? So be specific. Please try to avoid talking about compensation during the review. If you must share salary information at the start, do it according to company value, company policies. And don't sugarcoat the review for your poor performers. This is an opportunity for you to share the feedback, to share where they are in their performance. How are they meeting their KPIs? How much percentage is the weighting for a specific goal and how much have they achieved? Be honest and open in this conversation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here are my top tips. These are my helpful top tips that will help to put everything into context. Number 1, do your research and be prepared. Number 2, base your comments and feedback on evidence. Hard evidence, please. Don't base your comments and your conversation on gossip or rumors. Try to base it on something that you can actually bring to the discussion. Break up your feedback using the following 30, 20, 50. Now, this is percentages that I like to follow and advise my clients to do. 30% of your feedback should be based on the first 10 months, January to possibly October, whatever your yearly performance review is. The next 20% is on the last 2 months, the recent. So that's 50%. The next 50% should be on the future, the next 12 months. Too many times I see managers focusing on what's happened. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't focus and you can't change what's happened in the past. You can only work on moving forward and making sure that that behavior is not repeated. Remember, behavior is intentional. Why are they behaving difficultly? Because they've managed to do it in the past. If you allow them to behave like this, they'll continue. It's only when you stop them. And not only that, behavior breeds behavior. If you're accepting bad behavior, tantrums in the office, and you're not doing anything about it, indirectly, you're telling everyone else, hey, it's okay to throw a tantrum. It's okay to behave like that because you're not stopping it. Number 4, explain the impact their behavior has on the business and the team. So what impact is it having? If they don't understand the impact and the consequences of their behavior, how or why would they change? Describe the outcome you want to see clearly with examples. The behavior that you want them to start doing, they may not understand or they may not have any reference point. So to make sure that you get buy-in, explain and show. Remember, you are a role model as well. And the 30-20-50 rule. Also, explain what a high rating of outstanding looks like and what the next rating or what they have to do to get the next higher rating. Some may argue, disagree, explain, refute their past performance. But remember, what is this conversation about? It's about telling them what did not work in the past. It's about telling them what you expect in their future performance, not starting January the 1st, starting now. And it's not a debate. It's not, if you did this, I would do this. If you've done your homework, then there should be no comeback or disagreements. If you've got your evidence, if you've done those regular monthly meetings, if you are prepared, it'll be fine. It's not going to be a debate. Obviously, you want to listen to their discussions as well and what they think or feel. And finally, if you see something, say something. Please, ladies and gentlemen, don't wait until the performance review to give your employee feedback. You need to make sure that you are giving them regular feedback on a monthly basis. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like just to stop for a minute and ask, does anyone have any questions or would you like some advice based on what I've covered so far. If you want to put it in the chat box, I'd be more than happy to answer your questions in the chat box. So Hassan is actually promising he's not going to be a difficult person from now on. Thank you, Hassan. I've got it in writing and I've got documentation. Thank you, Lamise. Thank you very much. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? I'm here and I really want you to, yes, we will be sharing the presentation, Elke. Yes. And it's also being recorded on YouTube. This session will be recorded, so the live recording will be available as well for anyone that wants to follow up on this. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen, about what I've covered so far? Anything about my own experience that I faced difficulties with?
I have a question. What if when you're giving a review session to one of your employees and they start to cry, what is the best practice, or what best to handle that?
Hassan, thank you very much. So whenever you're in a meeting room, every meeting room that a performance review is going to be conducted, have a box of tissues, first of all, okay? Secondly, remember, if they're crying, they're shocked, they're nervous, they're worried. One thing I wouldn't do is ignore it. I would acknowledge, but there's a way to acknowledge it. If I say, you're upset, right? I can see you're upset. You didn't like that feedback. That's why you're crying. I'm accusing them. What you want to do is you want to say, Madeline, I can see that you're upset. I can see that you are a little bit nervous. Would you like a few moments just to gather? Can I get you a glass of water? But don't overcompensate for this. Ultimately, you've got to get that message through. You've got to make sure that the message is loud and clear. So give them a few moments and then say to them, are you okay for me to carry on? Or would you like a few moments and maybe we can reconvene in an hour's time? But that next hour, no tears. Ultimately, you have to get that message across. So I think compassion and empathy is very, very important. But not only that, it's also important that you follow your agenda, because that rating has to be put in at some stage. Tips for conducting the performance review virtually. Rule number 1, camera is on. Number 2, microphone is working. Not only that, but you have to make sure that there is a set agenda and you've set down the time that it's going to take. You know, ladies and gentlemen, when you are talking virtually, you lose the tones of emotion. You lose that intonation. So you also have to be a little bit more patient when conducting the performance review virtually. I would also make sure that it's in a confidential space. Obviously, performance review should be confidential, and I wouldn't record it. Many times people have said, I'm going to record. I have a device on my laptop. I can record it. Please don't record it. Okay? Make notes, and there are some times that I would share the whiteboard. So share your screen, have an open and honest conversation, and make notes that both of you can see that are visible. Okay? How do you handle the expression of a completely different evaluation of performance if you don't have hard facts or witnesses? Elke, thank you very much for this question. So basically, this is very subjective then. It's what you've observed and what you've seen. In this case, my first thing that comes to my mind is when that behavior happened, was it addressed at that time? And when it was addressed at that time, is there any hard evidence or facts for that if you addressed it at that time? If it is a rating of 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest, you've rated them maybe a 2 and they've given themselves a 5, then there is a complete breakdown of communication. And I would then ask the employee, can you please tell me what hard evidence you have to justify yourself and you thinking you deserve a rating of 4? you have to get to that area where you are working with evidence. Does that answer your question, Elke?
Partly, yes. Thank you, Natalie. My question would also be if the employee has just a different expectation or understanding of, let's say, different understanding of my expectation of the performance. Because maybe the feedback from a previous manager has been different and the expectation has been much lower. So the idea of greatness
Yes. Okay.
is a different one.
Okay, so Elke, we're talking about two things here. We're talking about goals, targets, KPIs. They don't lie. You've got the factual data there.
Mm-hmm.
It normally comes down to a difference of opinion, and they feel that you are being unfair to them because of this situation or that situation. When the expectations are different, I'm wondering, before the performance appraisal, did you have an expectations meeting as regarding, look, I'm working with you, I'm not going to be appraising you, these are my expectations moving forward? Because it's all behavioral, and you have to have something that is tangible, otherwise you go round and round and round. When I'm dealing with a behavior that a manager previous to me thought was acceptable and I didn't, as soon as I see that behavior, I nip it in the bud. I literally tell them there and then, look, this behavior is not acceptable. I document it. So,
yeah, I find it difficult if things are not like really a problem. If somebody did something wrong that would need a immediate feedback, but for example, let's say response time. Somebody finds a response time is absolutely fine, but you cannot say, listen, I'm your new manager now, and I expect you to answer an email in 30 minutes, or
yes.
Evaluate XYZ in exactly these hours. You can't do that because you also cannot have a time frame for everything. It's rather like maybe based on my experience and maybe working with different people before, but that person, depending on what the previous manager's expectation was, is different. So sometimes you only can give feedback after it's already done. Let's say sometimes long time done.
Right. So, okay, we're talking about evidence, right? If I send an email to you and I'm expecting to have that email responded by, let's say, 5:30, I've documented in the email that I want that email responded by 5:30. After 2 days, they respond. That's hard evidence for me.
But would you do that? That you make a time tag on everything? You don't do that in.
Well, if it's really urgent and it's something that is critical, I do.
Yeah.
But okay. I think it's more about setting the expectations from the set go, because if you don't, then you are going to have this, well, my last manager, well, I understand that was your last manager. I'm not your last manager. I'm different. And these are my expectations. And moving forward, this is what I expect, 1, 2, 3. As soon as, and any managers here, as soon as you are taking over a department, you have to have an expectations meeting with everyone. And it comes down to the SLA, service level agreements. Even something as picky as, look, I'm not going to call you after working hours, but if I do, it's urgent, and please, can you pick up? Because we need to understand the business can't stop because of this. And my question is, does this contribute to a rating in the performance evaluation, in the performance review? It's a collection of items. It's not going to be once. It must have been done 5 or 6 times. If it's been done 5 or 6 times, why? Why has it got to the 3rd time or the 4th time? It should have been handled way before then. Okay? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, any other questions that I can answer? Any other questions? Okay. I'm going to end with a video. This session is quite a heavy session in terms of this is how you do it. This is what this. And I just want us to always think about putting ourselves in the employee's shoes. We are appraised. We get performance reviews. If our performance review has not been professional or has not been conducted in an ethical manner, It's not okay for us then to go and do it to our employee. We mustn't become the people we despise. We still have to make sure that we are ethical with the way that we conduct our performance reviews. So I've got a short video, and it's called Putting Yourself in Someone Else's Shoes. Please don't go. I've got some more information at the end of the session. The video is around about 2 minutes. Sorry, let me just share my volume as well. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, the message behind that is the people that you are appraising are somebody else's son or daughter, mother or father. We don't know what they've been through, but just remember, how would we want them to treat our mother, father, son or daughter? It may not be yours, but it is somebody else's. When having these difficult conversations, it's not about catching employees out. It's not about trying to get them. It's not about trying to make sure that your favorites succeed. It's about making sure the people in your team can perform to their best. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to launch a poll, please. It is launched on your screens now. I am still here. What I would like to say is anyone that would like the toolkit of the skill will matrix, please can you send us your email address in the chat box. I would really appreciate if everyone can fill out this poll, and please stay in touch, follow us. We are still doing these sessions. We did conduct this poll purely because you asked us for this topic. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've been a pleasure. Thank you so much. And I wish you all the best of luck in your performance reviews. And I hope that you now have enough information. Should anyone start being difficult, remember their behavior is intentional and they have a choice. It's our role to make sure that we manage it to the best of our ability. Okay, Abigail, thank you so much. Basil, thank you. Mustafa, thank you very much. Elaine, my pleasure. Khaloud, thank you very much. Sherka, thank you. Hope to see you soon. Maria, thank you. Shekri, brilliant. Thank you. Danella, Farham, Elki, thank you very much for attending. Claire, thank you very much. Lamise, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for me today. Please, if you haven't finished the poll, please do so. This feedback really helps us to improve our sessions day by day. And anyone that put us the sent the email, we will be sending you a copy of the toolkit for you and your employee. And if you need to know any more information, please contact us. We'd be happy to support you in this, okay? Thank you very much, Maria. We've got your email address. Great, thank you. Alki, great, got it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mustafa, got it. Shekri Farham, thank you. Terrell, got it. Thank you very much. So your performance review sessions are now going to be a breeze. I hope. Xenia, thank you very much.
Natalie, I actually have a question.
Yes.
Do you also have something how to prepare the manager, like what questions to ask and what, to prepare for that in
Yes,
not in regards
so,
to the goals and if it's matched, but
yes, so actually to prepare for the performance review session in terms of what to happen, yes. Actually, Elke, in our coaching sessions, what we do is we talk them through a whole suite. So in terms of when should you start preparing, you should actually start preparing 2 months before the performance review. What do you need to prepare? There's documentation, there's the getting the employees' documents sorted, but also, as I showed you the opening statement, there's the opening statement, the closing statement, the questions to ask, the questions not to ask, and also some dummy role plays. So for example, if you say to an employee, in this particular target or KPI, whatever, I noticed that you were 20% below target. If an employee says, no, I wasn't, how do you know that? Who said that? If they get defensive, how to control and how to respond to that situation. There's another situation where, as you said, the expectations, an employee has underrated themselves. How do you manage that? Other situations where the employee said, well, I know you gave Raja a 3 and you're giving me a 2. I work harder than Raja. Why are you giving him a 3 and me a 2? So there's a whole multitude of scenarios that we address, and we just make sure that the manager, before going into the performance review meeting, is prepared on how to manage those situations and how to document and how to handle most eventualities that come out of performance reviews. Because also, Elke, we have the mid-year. So in June, July this year, we did the mid-year, how to prepare for the mid-year. And in the poll that we sent out, everyone wanted how to deal with difficult employees. So we do have a session on how to prepare for performance reviews.
okay. Would I have access to that, or is that gone?
We've got your email address. We'll have a separate conversation. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if there are any other questions, please let me know. Apart from that, you've been a great group. Thank you very much, Alki, for asking questions. Hassan, we like you. Don't worry. You were just the person's name who came to my mind immediately. I hope that this has been useful and interesting for you. And have a great day and enjoy the evening ahead. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, Natalie. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Natalie.